I think Jonathan Mill or something. I believe I probably wouldn't know what it is. Word on the street is that Jendi Tartakovsky is working on a 2D animated feature called Fixed for Sony, and it's rated R.
Yeah, like yeah, movie feature for Sony.
A movie feature for Sony, yes. Sony Pictures Columbia, Sony Pictures Animation, that group, the he's the same he's the same guy behind the Hotel Transylvania franchise.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm aware of who John about that's his last name is. Anyway, yeah, yeah, I know it's in the invite, so there was like yeah, 5 different people. Is like another one person gonna come up?
I tried inviting Glen Keane, who got his start on this film. By Robin Hood, he was just a
Mm.
trainee, but by now he progressed to character animator. He's
So that explains that whole students graduate theme title thingy.
yeah, yeah, it does. Um Glen Keane animated on the character Bernard, played by Bob Newhart, who's not
Mhm.
only the star of the Bob Newhart show, but he's also Papa Elf from the North Pole.
Why does me of these references go back to Elf?
Uh, how many references go back to Elf?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I've been keeping track of them. Yeah, yeah, audio, visuals, features, and series we've yeah doing so far.
Okay. Ah, gee. Uh, um. All right. If we can't officially go with we can't officially go with John or Glenn, then John Glenn. No. If we can't go with them, we might we might as well have to do this solo if Julia's not gonna make it. So let's just
Do
let's
the summary.
let's just get things going. In 1959, the book The Rescuers by Margarey Sharp had been published to considerable success. In 1962, Sharp followed it up with a sequel titled Miss Bianca. That same year, the books were optioned by Walt Disney, who began developing an animated film adaptation. In January 1963, story artist Otto Englander wrote a treatment based on the first book, centering on a Norwegian poet unfairly imprisoned in a Siberia-like stronghold known as the Black Castle. The story was revised with the location changed to Cuba, in which the mice would help the poet escape into the United States. However, as the story became overtly involved in international intrigue, Disney shelved the project as he was unhappy with the political overtones. In August 1968, Englander wrote another treatment featuring Bernard and Bianca rescuing Richard the Lionheart during the Middle Ages. Holy mackerel, that's like Indiana Jones Last Crusade territory.
I thought it was more like Robin Hood territory.
Okay, so all right, so during the early 1970s, the project was revived as a project for the young animators, led by Don Bluth, as the studio would alternate between full-scale A pictures and smaller scaled-back B pictures with simpler animation. The animators had selected the most recent book, Miss Bianca in the Antarctic, to adapt from. The new story involved a king penguin deceiving a captured polar bear into performing shows aboard a schooner, causing the unsatisfied bear to place a bottle that would reach the mice. This version of the story was later dropped because Fred Lucky, a storyboard artist, explained that the Arctic setting was too stark a background for the animators. Since Bernie Madison, who unfortunately passed away earlier this year. He stated, our problem was that the penguin wasn't formidable or evil enough for the audience to believe he would dominate the big bear. We struggled with that for a year or so. We changed the locale to somewhere in America and was now a regular zoo, and we tried to come up with something with the bear in the zoo and needed to be rescued, but that didn't work either. In that version, the bear character was still retained, but was renamed Louis the Bear, and Louis Prima was thought he could get another role, but he was shortchanged again, like he was with Robin Hood. And the writers also explained the role of his best friend Gus the Lion. Allison has stated about two animals. One is Louis Prima. He's the polar bear, and Red Fox, from Sanford and Son. He's the lion. Louis gets cornered into leaving and goes to South Pole where he can make himself a bigger star, but he gets homesick. Appears that John Pomeroy and Glen Keane couldn't really be here tonight. I think they were busy with other things. I don't really think they rejected me because they were busy. I know I have to have schedules and stuff, and I'm gonna give them space. And Julia has her own schedule too, so she's not here tonight. So I'm gonna give her.
I don't even know what she does.
Okay. Well, let's get back to let's get back to where we're going. Apparently, we developed so according to story artist Vance Gary, director Wolfgang Reitherman had stated, it's too complicated. I want a simple story. A little girl gets kidnapped and the mice try to get her back, period. By November 1973, the role of Louis the Bear had been heavily scaled back and then eliminated. In one version, the bear was meant to be Bernard and Bianca's connection to Penny. Jerry explained that we developed the sequence there where, while the two mice are searching for clues as to where Penny had been taken, they come across this bear who she had been friends with because the orphanage where Penny was living was near the zoo. In the final film, the idea was reduced to a simple scene where Bernard enters the zoo and hears a lion roar that scares him away. In Europe, while promoting the release of Robin Hood, Reitherman stayed. I took Margarey Sharp's books along, and there was a mean woman in a crystal palace. When I got back, I called some of the guys together and I said, "You've got to get a villain in this thing." And the villain, Ness, and a motive to steal a diamond, was adapted from the Diamond Duchess and Miss Bianca. The setting was then changed to the bayous found in the southern United States. And by August 1973, the villainess was named the Grand Duchess with Phyllis Diller casting role. This wasn't going to be her only animated feature. She already been in Mad Monster Party as the monster's mate. A month later, conceptual artist Ken Anderson began depicting Cruella de Vil, the villainess from 101 Dalmatians, as the main antagonist of the film, which is kind of crazy. I mean, they own it, but it's kind of weird how they could get like this alternate universe where they have like the same villain in the same kind of setting, but in almost an interconnected universe, which I think a lot of these films might be. So Anderson,
what is this, Convergence Station?
the Marvel movies are all part of an interconnected universe.
Yeah, I get the idea. Please continue.
So Anderson had drawn several sketches of Cruella de Vil sporting alligator leathered chic attire and sunglasses. One sketch depicted her wearing bell-bottom pants and platform shoes. Time to get with the 70s. Yeah. However, several staff members, such as animator Ollie Johnston, stated it felt wrong to attempt a sequel for the character. Furthermore, Madison explained that Milt Kahl did not want to animate Cruella de Vil. Milt, of course, was very strong against that. Oh, no. We're going to have a new character. I'm not going to do Cruella, Madison recalled, because he felt that Marc Davis had animated Cruella beautifully. He was not going to go and take his character. The new version of the character was named Madame Medusa, and her appearance was based on Kahl's then wife, Phyllis Bounds, who was a niece of Lillian Disney. whom he divorced in 1978. This was Kahl's last film for the studio, and he wanted his final character to be his best. He was so insistent on perfecting Madame Medusa that he ended up doing almost all the animation for the character himself. The kidnapped child Penny was inspired by Patience, the orphan in the novel. The alligator characters Brutus and Nero was based on the two bloodhounds, Tyrant and Torment, in the novels. For the henchman, the filmmakers adapted the character Mandrake into Mr. Snoops. His appearance was caricatured from John Culhane, a journalist who had been interviewing animators at the Disney studios. Culhane claimed he was practically tricked into posing for various reactions, and his movements were imitated on Mr. Snoop's model sheets. However, he said, becoming a Disney character was beyond my wildest dreams of glory. Also, the writers had considered developing Bernard and Bianca into married professional detectives, though they decided that leaving the characters as unmarried novices was more romantic. For the supporting characters, a pint-sized swamp mobile for the mice, a leaf powered by a dragonfly, was created. As they developed the comedic potential of displaying his exhaustion through buzzing, the dragonfly grew from an incidental into a major character. Veteran sound effects artist and voice actor Jimmy McDonald came out of retirement to provide the effects. Additionally, the local swamp creatures were originally written as a dedicated home guard that drilled and marched incessantly. However, the writers rewrote them into a volunteer group of helpful little bayou creatures. Their leader, a singing bullfrog voiced by Phil Harris, was deleted from the film. A pigeon was originally proposed to serve as transportation for Bernard and Bianca until Johnston remembered a True Life Adventures episode that featured albatrosses and their clumsy takeoffs and landings. He then suggested the ungainly bird instead. But this is kind of real tragic. But on February the 13th, 1976, one of the nine old men that was left, co-director John Lounsbury, died of a heart attack during production. Art Stevens, an animator, was then selected as a new co-director. So, oddly enough, the Aristocats was a success. So then President Ron Miller pledged that the new animators should be hired to ensure a continuity of quality Disney animated films for another generation. Eric Larson, one of the Nine Old Men animators, scouted for potential artists who were studying art schools and colleges through the United States, and more than 60 artists were brought into the training program, including our friend John Pomeroy that I attempted to bring on, and Glen Keane I also attempted to bring on too. Then the selected trainees were to create a black and white animation test, which were reviewed at the end of the month. Process will continue for several months, of which the few finalists were first employed as in-betweeners working only on nights and weekends. By 1977, more than 25 artists were hired during the training program. Among these selected were Glen Keane, Ron Clements, and Andy Gaskill, all of whom will play crucial roles in the Disney Renaissance. Because of this, The Rescuers was the first collaboration between the newly recruited trainees and the senior animators. It would also mark the last joint effort by Milt Kahl, Ollie Johnston, and Frank Thomas, and the first Disney film Don Bluth had worked on as the directing animator, instead of as an assistant animator. Ever since 101 Dalmatians, animation for theatrical Disney animated features had been done by Xerography, which had only been able to produce black outlines. By the time The Rescuers was in production, the technology had been improved for the cell artists to use a medium gray toner in order to create a softer looking line. And I kind of nice that they were able to pull that off. So we have music from Carol Connors and Annie Robbins, and he thought he could just also, for the first time since Bambi, all the most significant songs were sung as part of a narrative as opposed to by the film's characters as in most Disney animated films. So there was songs heard in the film but not released on the soundtrack. Faith is a Bluebird, the U.S. Air Force theme, and For Penny's a Jolly Good Fellow. And well, let me tell you, that one scene where they're playing Tomorrow is Another Day, where they're flying across the United States to get to Devil's Bayou so they can rescue Penny. That is definitely the closest thing Disney probably has ever made to a 70s era airline commercial. Now,
that definitely would have been a lot of like layout motions just to do all those panning effects.
Yeah, so I can definitely picture right in the last shot where Orville is basically flying off into the distance. You never know where you're gonna go till you get there, says the narrator. Fly the friendly skies of Albatross. I would dig on Fly the Friendly Skies of United, because Albatross Airlines was the airline that was in that particular film. All right, so on June the 19th, 1977, The Rescuers premiered at the AFI Silver Theater in Washington, D.C. During the film's initial theatrical run, the film was released as a double feature with the live-action nature documentary film A Tale of Two Critters. And let's see what got in the box office. No. Homia, no. No. Oh yeah, here we go. Box office. Rescuers was successful upon its original theatrical release, earning worldwide gross rentals of $48 million at the box office. During its initial release in France, it outgrossed the highest grossing film of that year, which was
Barely, it was grossing more of a box office income in France over Star Wars.
In France, it outgrossed Star Wars, receiving admissions of $7.2 million. The film also became the highest grossing film in West Germany at the time, with admissions of $9.7 million. By the end of its theatrical run, the distributor rentals now amounted to $19 million in the United States and Canada, while its international rentals totaled $41 million. And I mean, this is still good money. It's not like I don't know how successful you can be, because this is like the late 70s. I don't really know how money would be going around. Money got you more your worth back then. And yet there was I mean, Star Wars was the highest grossing film in that year, and at that time, the highest grossing movie of all time. Star Wars, 1977, the first one that George Lucas made. So how was the critical reaction? Honestly,
remember, just give us 3.
Rescuers was said to be Disney's greatest film, since Mary Poppins seemed to signal a new golden age for Disney animation. Charles Champlin of the Los Angeles Times praised the film as the best feature-length animated film from Disney in a decade or more, the funniest, most inventive, the least self-conscious, the most coherent and movie from start to finish, and probably most important of all, it is also the most touching in that unique way of fantasy has of carrying vibrations of real life and real feelings. And Vincent Canby of the New York Times wrote that the film doesn't belong in the same category as the great Disney cartoon features Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Bambi, Fantasia, but it's a reminder of a kind of slickly cheerful animated entertainment that has become all but extinct. And here comes 2 critics that were really starting to rise up to power. Roger Ebert and Gene Siskel. And this is what Gene Siskel had to say. He gave the film 2.5 stars out of 4, writing, "To see any Disney animated film these days is to compare it with Disney classics released 30 or 40 years ago. Judged against Pinocchio, for example, The Rescuers is lightweight indeed. Its themes are forgettable. It's mostly an adventure story." So Roger Ebert and Gene Siskel, we had just started their a TV show where they were reviewing movies that just came out. And the show was
Yeah. I think everybody gets the idea. Please continue.
Oh, I cannot talk about this film unless I mention that there was like a weird scandal that ended up happening. But it was way after the film's release. On January the 8th, 1999, 3 days after the film's second release on home video, the Walt Disney Company announced a recall of about 3.4 million copies of the videotapes because there was an objectionable image in one of the film's backgrounds. The image in question is a blurry image of a topless woman with breasts and nipples showing. The image appears twice in non-consecutive frames during the scene in which Miss Bianca and Bernard are flying on Orville's back through New York City. The 2 images cannot be seen in ordinary viewing because the film runs too fast at 24 frames per second. And on January the 10th, 1999, 2 days after the recall was announced, the London newspaper The Independent reported a Disney spokeswoman said that the images in the rescuers were placed in the film during post-production, but she declined to say what they were or who placed them. The company said the aim of the recall was to keep its promise to families that they can trust and rely on the Disney brand to provide the best in family entertainment. Rescuers home video was issued on March 23rd, 1999, with the inappropriate nudity edited and blocked out. Yeah, you think wrap that around for a little bit. Disney all of a sudden put in porn, and it just scooted by so fast you couldn't even notice it. But
I don't think it was a deliberate pornography.
Deliberate pornography. Listen, relationships get ruined with porn, and your life can get ruined with porn. So I think I might be grateful.
Even if just to see brief nudity for 1 second, I mean, I ain't even gonna have children in the future.
oh my gracious! I don't know. I mean, but yeah, apparently it would. Yes, this year was the last Friday the 13th, which Bernard has suspicions of on bad luck, before 2032. So in terms of what we
are you
have
talking about now?
Bernard in the film, as you can recall, has suspicions of bad luck. The number 13, Friday the 13th, and various 13 steps on the ladder, things like that.
Yeah, we get it. It's called triskaidekaphobia, as last I checked.
Well, that's so they knew. So by this time, it felt like you know what, the people at the old guard at Disney was getting old. They suddenly realized, you know what, it may be time for us to suddenly hang up our pencils and pass the torch on to the new generation. So next week, the last anime feature that the 9 old men had a privilege of working on. How's that?
Yeah, I guess that was good and long enough. So, yeah, what version of the Rescuers do you think I was on the Plus anyhow?
Oh, well, you know, every single time I see a boat jump, and The only film I can really think of, that has boats jumping is
With a
Live
wardrobe
and
malfunction at
Die.
the same time.
The only other film I could think of that has boats jumping is Live and Let Die. You know, the James Bond movie where he's in Louisiana and they're and he's trying to and he's on the run from Sheriff J.W. Pepper. Madame Medusa jumps her boat in a similar way off one of the banks and into the air, if you can recall in the film.
Yeah, so yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, it was a yeah, yeah, great, adequate, successful film. I know that my mother recalls having a fun time watching it too.
Um, um, I really love Ava Gabor's performance here. She was definitely great as Duchess in the Aristocats. Now she's playing Bianca in The Rescuers.
Yeah, I mean, like I said before, when we were coming Aristocats, that she wanted a funny role, but it was hard to do so, as she had like the sweetest of all feminine voices.
It's sometimes it feels hard for someone of a certain country who who uh, prides herself in femininity to end up being funny, and traditional femininity to end up being funny. It is kind of hard, but at least you give it your best shot. So
Yeah, and I also like how you were describing the details of the Xerox outlines, because I mean, you have noticed how like the thick black outlines before, and I was making the fur and the characters a bit more scruffy here, and yeah, you said that with the new gray tones that they had for the rescuers, that were finally nailing down a more softer technique going on.
oh, I I definitely like how they were able to do that. Milt Kahl's animation on Madame Medusa is awesome, and it's actually been he gave it his all on this character, and the pencil touch of this character and gifs of it, they're still online and posted. And you can study them, and it's actually
I know, I studied some of them in Frank and Ollie's book.
oh yeah, the illusion of life, which would end up being published by the time next week's film would be pumped out.
Okay, well, I'm sorry that the mating stuff hasn't like went as well as planned, but yeah, we were lucky to talk about it with each other.
Oh, I'm definitely glad to talk about things I enjoy with you, and I'm glad that I'm able to try to pull out as many stops as I can to talk with people who have been involved with the magic.
Okay, I gotta get going. Gotta finish my dinner.
Okay, bye.
See you next week.
Goodbye.